Thanks for staying with us. Time now for Africa News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, calls for a surge in foreign troops as the UN warns that over 1 million people face food shortages in Central African Republic. The ongoing exodus of terrified Muslim traders fleeing for their lives could just make matters worse, as French peacekeepers slam Christian militia, calling them the enemies of peace. Also, France meets the US and Africa is on the menu. President Barack Obama hails his French counterpart's efforts to fight extremism across the continent as François Hollande pays a state visit to the White House. And dressing to impress. Despite modest means, a group of working-class fashionistas in Democratic Republic of Congo spend hundreds on shoes and clothes, but they see themselves as Africa's it club and say the kudos is worth the cost. First up, though, Christian fighters in Central African Republic who initially took up arms against former Seleka rebels but now target Muslims they accuse of collaboration have come in for more harsh criticism today. French troops seized weapons from anti-Balaka militia in Bangui on Tuesday and warned that they'd become the enemies of peace. Terrified Muslims continue to flee the country. The exodus means traders who supply staples are gone and market stalls are empty. The UN reckons that over 1 million people already need urgent food assistance after months of inter-religious violence. While the UN High Commission for Refugees, Antonio Guterres, has told France 24 that the international community must do more and quickly.
It's not only a food crisis. We are witnessing here a humanitarian catastrophe. Massive ethno-religious cleansing, indiscriminate killings, in some situations massacres taking place. We see still people forced to flee, sometimes having nowhere to go. We see ghettos being formed and at the same time insecurity going on. We have about 7,000 troops on the ground. It's not enough. There needs to be an immediate surge, and the international community needs to come together for an immediate surge in the military presence to make sure that security is reestablished. But of course, it's not a military answer that we need. We need a political answer in a country where the state already was not existing. Now the fabrics of society are also being destroyed, and we need a massive humanitarian operation. And unfortunately, with Syria, with South Sudan, this is falling into the cracks of international attention. And all the humanitarian agencies that are working here and doing, some of them with enormous courage, a very important job, they are totally under-resourced. They have not the means that are necessary to cope with this dramatic challenge.
Now, you're saying that there's in your opinion, a role that the international community can further play to tackle the challenges faced by Central African Republic. But part of the reason behind the violence and the scarcity of food is because of the growing rift between communities themselves. What can be done to try and get the message through to, for example, the anti-Balaka, that by targeting Muslims, they're actually making it harder to feed the rest of the population?
Now, it's not only necessary to send a clear message. It is essential that message is followed by action on the ground. We have widespread banditry. We have people, as I said, doing ethnic and religious cleansing, doing massacres. They must be stopped. And this is not only a matter of persuasion, it's also a matter of creating the conditions to impose peace on the ground. And for that, the force that is present in South African Republic is simply not enough. There must be a surge, and the surge is needed now. Without that, I think that we risk this going on and on. Probably, if nothing happens in the western part of South African Republic, there will be no Muslim population in a few months' time.
Antonio Guterres there speaking to us a little earlier on. Look at some other news now. Malian jihadist group, the Movement for Oneness and Jihad in West Africa, or MUJAO, say that they're behind the kidnapping of a team of Red Cross workers. The 5 Malian citizens went missing whilst travelling between the northern cities of Kidal and Gao on Saturday. MUJAO is one of the groups that occupied the north of the country during an Islamist invasion in 2012. The ICRC says it still can't confirm the Al-Qaeda-linked sect's claims, but the organisation is in contact with the group. A UN-backed court in Tanzania has acquitted on appeal a Rwandan ex-general of genocide charges. Judges agreed that General Augustin Dindiamana didn't have effective authority over subordinates accused of abuses during the 1994 mass killings of Tutsis and politically moderate Hutus. The court also acquitted Major François-Xavier Zouanemaille of involvement in the murder of the Prime Minister and 10 Belgian blue helmets at the start of the genocide. Algerian authorities say that 77 people were killed when an army transport plane slammed into a mountain on Tuesday. One person survived the crash near the town of ICRC. Militaries blamed the accident on poor weather. Well, standing side by side at the White House, the leaders of France and the US today vowed to coordinate efforts to fight extremism in Africa and boost development across the continent. French President François Hollande is on a state visit to the States, and today President Barack Obama hailed his counterpart's efforts to help Africa tackle its conflicts and security crises. Our Philip Crowther brings us more on this from Washington.
This is the kind of visit where France and the United States have been insisting that they are grateful for each other's cooperation, for each other's security cooperation more than anything. And what they're talking about there is Africa, and more concretely, the French military operations in Mali and in the Central African Republic. There is gratitude, first of all, from the United States that France took the lead and put boots on the ground, and that the United States only had to add logistics and the likes of drones over Mali to help out. And there is also, well, gratitude from France that the United States did provide that help to make any kind of military operation like that one even possible. There is cooperation also in a commercial sense, militarily speaking, because it is, after all, the United States that sold the first 2 Reaper drones to France that are now active over northern Africa, well, as we speak. There are also promises from France and the United States to work close on global development, and also in the fight against HIV, AIDS, and against malaria in Africa. All sorts of messages that there will be more collaboration, more cooperation between these 2 countries in Africa in the near and also in the more distant future.
In Nigeria, 11 lawmakers who'd planned on defecting from the ruling party to the rival APC have been temporarily blocked from doing so by a complaint filed in the federal court. President Goodluck Jonathan's PDP parties challenged the would-be Senate defectors by asking judges to declare their seats vacant on the grounds that switching parties goes against the will of voters. While Jonathan's struggling with dwindling support ahead of next year's elections, his party has already lost its parliamentary majority after a string of defections from the lower house. Well, finishing now with men who dress to impress. Despite their modest means, a group of working-class fashionistas in Democratic Republic of Congo spend hundreds on shoes and clothes. The Society of Elegant Persons, or SAPEs, first sprung up around 30 years ago and today are turning more heads than ever. Take a look.
These are the famous sapeurs, or the Society of Elegant People. Initially under authoritarian ruler Mobutu, wearing bright clothes was a gesture of defiance. 30 years later, the movement is no longer political.
In SAP, you have 4 rules. You don't become a sapper, you were born one. You will honor SAP like your father and mother. You will never betray SAP, whatever the situation. And you will die as a sapper, like Stervos Niarchos did.
Stervos Niarchos was the king of the Kinshasa sap. Every year around his tomb there is a competition to see who is the most elegantly dressed. This artist is called 100% Paper. He's abandoned brands. He recycles paper to create his own style. He even wears solar panels.
I made these clothes in an African style because sappers' clothes are expensive. We have to borrow some or ask Congolese abroad to send some to us. That's why I do them here. And on this day of the sappers, you can buy my clothes for $35.
He believes the movement has lost some of its soul, and his aim is to give sap a new lease of life.
Watch out, France Venkat. I might be taking some style tips there. But that does wrap up African news for me. I'll be back with more tomorrow. Join us then if you can. Take care.